Enjoy the story. The wealthy tech entrepreneur stood in the doorway of his son's room, his voice cracking as he looked at the young woman before him. "Get my son to draw again," he said, desperation bleeding through every word. "Just one picture, and I'll pay for your entire art education. 4 years at any school in the world, that's the deal." The young woman, her clothes stained with paint and her hands calloused from years of part-time work, stared back at him in disbelief. She'd only come here to clean the gallery rooms in his private collection. Now this man, Marcus Chen, whose face appeared on magazine covers, whose tech company had revolutionized the industry, was offering her a fortune for something that seemed impossible. "Mr. Chen," she said carefully, "I'm just a janitor. I don't understand why you think I could." "Because my son hasn't picked up a pencil in 8 months, Marcus interrupted, his hands trembling. 8 months since the accident. Doctors, therapists, child psychologists, none of them could reach him. He used to draw constantly. It was his whole world. Now he won't even look at his sketchbooks." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I've tried everything. I'm out of options." The young woman, Lily Morrison, 23 years old, working 3 jobs to afford community college art classes, felt something twist in her chest. She knew that hollow look in Marcus Chen's eyes. She'd seen it in her own mirror 2 years ago, after the car accident that shattered her right hand. The doctors said she'd never have full mobility again. For 6 months, she couldn't hold a brush without her fingers spasming. She'd wanted to die. "How old is he?" she asked quietly. 10. "His name is Ethan." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her a photo. A bright-eyed boy, with his father's sharp features, holding up a detailed charcoal drawing of a hawk in flight. This was 3 days before the crash. Now he barely speaks. Won't leave his room except for physical therapy. The light went out of his eyes, and I don't know how to bring it back. Lily studied the drawing in the photo. The detail, the confidence in every line. This kid had real talent. Natural talent that most people spent years trying to develop. "What happened to his hands?" she asked, already suspecting the answer. "Crushed in the accident. He was in the passenger seat when a drunk driver hit us. I walked away with bruises." "Ethan." Marcus's jaw clenched. 12 surgeries. The doctors saved his hands, but the nerve damage. They say he'll never have the fine motor control he used to. He can hold things, use them functionally, but the precision needed for detailed drawing. He shook his head. "Gone." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. She looked down at her own right hand, flexing the fingers that still didn't quite obey her commands. The pinky that never fully straightened, the tremor that appeared when she was tired. "Mr. Chen, I need to tell you something. Call me Marcus, please." "Marcus, then. 2 years ago, I was in a car accident too. Shattered my dominant hand. The doctors told me I'd never draw again. Not seriously. I was supposed to start at the Rhode Island School of Design that fall. Instead, I spent 6 months in physical therapy, learning to write my own name again." She held up her hand, letting him see the scars. "I still can't draw the way I used to. Some days I can barely hold a pencil, but I draw anyway, because I had to find a new way or give up entirely. If you think that experience could help your son, I'll try, but I can't promise anything." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. It wasn't quite hope, more like the faintest possibility that hope might exist somewhere in the distance. "When can you start?" "I work until 6, but I could come after." "I'll pay you whatever you're making at all 3 jobs, plus more. Consider this your only job now." Marcus pulled out his phone again. "And if you succeed, if you get Ethan to create even one drawing, the deal stands. Full ride, any art school in the world." Lily's mind reeled. This was insane. She barely knew this man, barely knew his son. What made him think she could help when professionals had failed? But then she looked at that photo again, at the drawing of the hawk, and thought about the boy who'd created it. The boy who'd lost his passion and couldn't see a way forward. She knew exactly how that felt. "I'll need to meet him first," she said. "See if he'll even talk to me. No pressure, no expectations, just see what happens." Marcus nodded quickly, relief flooding his face. "Yes, of course. Come tomorrow at 7?" He's usually awake by then, though he just stares at the ceiling. The next morning, Lily stood outside the Chen mansion in Palo Alto, her stomach churning with nerves. The house was everything she'd expected: modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, probably worth more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. A housekeeper named Grace answered the door, her kind face creasing with worry when Lily explained why she was there. "Poor child," Grace murmured. "He used to fill this house with laughter. Now it's like living with a ghost." She led Lily upstairs to a closed door. "He's in there. Mr. Chen is at the office, but he said you should just try talking to him." Lily knocked softly. No answer. She knocked again, then carefully opened the door. The room was large and filled with afternoon light, but it felt suffocating. Every surface held memories of who Ethan used to be: framed drawings on the walls, shelves packed with art supplies, a massive desk with a drafting table, and in the middle of it all, a small figure sat on the edge of his bed, hands folded in his lap, staring at nothing. "Ethan," Lily said gently. "My name's Lily. Your dad asked me to visit. Is it okay if I come in?" The boy didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge her presence. Up close, she could see the scars on his hands, the way his fingers curled slightly inward. She recognized that posture, the careful way he held them, like he was afraid they might shatter again. Lily didn't push. She simply walked to the drafting table and sat down in the chair, running her fingers over the smooth wood. "This is a nice setup," she said conversationally, as if they were old friends. "I've always wanted a space like this. Right now I work at my kitchen table, and my roommate keeps threatening to throw out my supplies because they take up too much space." Still nothing, but she thought she saw his eyes flicker toward her, just for a second. "I used to be really good at drawing," Lily continued, picking up a pencil from the desk. "Before my accident, I mean. I could sketch anything: portraits, landscapes, architectural details. I was going to be this amazing artist, change the world with my work." She laughed softly, without humor. "Then a drunk driver ran a red light, and suddenly I couldn't hold a pencil without my hand cramping up. The doctors said I should find a new dream." Now Ethan was definitely looking at her, his dark eyes wary but curious. "Want to know what I told the doctors?" Lily asked. She didn't wait for an answer. "I told them they could go to hell." She held up her scarred right hand. "See this pinky? Hasn't straightened properly in 2 years. And when I'm tired, my whole hand shakes like I'm 90 years old. But I still draw. It just looks different now. Sometimes I use my left hand. Sometimes I tape the pencil to my fingers. Sometimes I use my whole arm instead of just my wrist." She set the pencil down carefully. "The point is, I had to choose. Give up on the thing I loved, or find a new way to love it." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper when he finally spoke. "They say I can't draw anymore." "Not really. Not the way I used to." "Maybe not," Lily agreed. She didn't sugarcoat it, didn't offer false hope. "Or maybe you'll draw differently. Maybe you'll discover something new." "I don't want something new. I want what I had." "Yeah, I know that feeling." Lily stood up, moving toward the door. "I'm going to come back tomorrow, if that's okay. We don't have to draw or talk about art. We can just hang out. Maybe I'll tell you about the time I tried to paint with my feet out of spite." The tiniest hint of something, maybe curiosity, maybe amusement, crossed Ethan's face before disappearing. Lily kept coming back. Every day at 7 a.m. she'd arrive at the mansion, and every day she'd spend an hour in Ethan's room. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they sat in silence. She never pushed, never mentioned drawing, never even touched the art supplies that gathered dust around them. Instead, she told him stories about growing up in a tiny apartment in Oakland with her single mom, about the art teacher who saw potential in her rough sketches and paid for her first real set of supplies, about the night before the accident, when she'd been so excited about starting at RISD that she couldn't sleep. And slowly, carefully, Ethan started talking back, about his mom, who died when he was 6, about how his dad tried so hard but worked constantly and didn't really understand art, about the accident, how he'd been drawing in a sketchbook in the passenger seat, how he remembered the impact, the pain, the horrible sound of his own bones breaking. "I can't even look at my old drawings," he admitted one morning, 3 weeks into Lily's visits. "They just remind me of everything I lost." "That makes sense," Lily said. She'd brought coffee for herself and hot chocolate for Ethan, a ritual they'd developed. "But can I tell you something? Those drawings, they're not just about your hands. They're about how you saw the world. That doesn't go away just because your hands changed." Ethan stared into his hot chocolate. "How did you start drawing again? After your accident?" "Honestly, I was angry. So angry I wanted to punch walls, which would have been really stupid given my hand situation." She smiled slightly. "I started with finger painting, actually, like a kindergartner, just smearing paint around with my whole hand. It was messy and ugly and nothing like my old work, but it felt good. Like I was fighting back against everything that told me I couldn't." "Finger painting," Ethan repeated, and for the first time in their acquaintance, he almost smiled. "That's kind of ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. I've got photos if you don't believe me. Abstract disasters that would make Jackson Pollock weep." Lily paused, then took a risk. "Want to see?" She pulled out her phone, scrolling through images of her early attempts at reclaiming her art. Ugly, chaotic paintings that gradually transformed into something more controlled. Sketches done with her left hand, childish and wobbly at first. Experimental pieces where she'd taped brushes to her arm, to sticks, to anything that would help her create. Ethan studied each image intently. "These later ones are good," he said quietly. "Different, but good. Thanks. Took me about a year to get there. A year of being terrible, of wanting to quit every single day, of crying in frustration more times than I can count." She met his eyes. "But I'm still an artist, Ethan. Maybe not the artist I thought I'd be, but an artist nonetheless. That's something they can't take from you, not unless you let them." The next day, when Lily arrived, she found Ethan sitting at his drafting table for the first time. He wasn't drawing, his hands rested flat on the surface, fingers spread wide, but he was there, in that space, surrounded by the tools of his passion. "Hey," Lily said softly, not wanting to spook him. "This is new." "I thought I should at least try to sit here," Ethan said. His voice was tight with anxiety. "Even if I can't draw." "That's huge, Ethan. Really huge." Lily pulled up a chair beside him. "Mind if I join you?" They sat together in silence for a while. Then, moving slowly, Lily reached for a sketchbook, not one of Ethan's old ones, but a fresh new pad she'd brought with her. She opened it to a blank page and picked up a pencil with her left hand, her non-dominant hand. "Watch this," she said. "I'm going to draw with my bad hand. It's going to look absolutely terrible, but I'm going to do it anyway." She started sketching a simple vase with flowers. Her left hand was clumsy, the lines shaky and uncertain. The proportions were off, the perspective skewed. It looked like a child's drawing, nothing like the skilled work she was capable of with her right hand on a good day. "That's awful," Ethan said, but there was no meanness in it, almost wonder. "I know, right? Completely terrible." Lily kept going, adding more wonky flowers. "But you know what? I'm still drawing. I'm still creating. It might not be good, but it exists. I made something that wasn't there before." She set down the pencil and pushed the sketchbook toward Ethan. "Your turn." "I can't." "You can make marks on paper. That's all drawing is, really, just marks. They don't have to be perfect. They don't even have to be good. They just have to be yours." Ethan stared at the sketchbook like it might bite him. His scarred hands trembled as he reached for the pencil, then pulled back. "What if it's too hard? What if my hands don't work right?" "Then it's too hard and your hands don't work right. But you'll know. Right now you're just guessing. Wouldn't you rather know for sure?" It took another 5 minutes of silence before Ethan finally, carefully, picked up the pencil. His grip was awkward, the pencil held too tightly. Lily could see the concentration on his face, the way his whole body tensed with the effort. He pressed the pencil to paper and drew a single line. It was wobbly and uncertain, nothing like the confident strokes in his old drawings. But it was there, real, evidence that his hands could still create. Ethan's breath hitched. He drew another line, then another. not trying for anything specific, just experimenting with what his hands could do now. The pencil slipped twice, and she saw frustration flash across his face, but he kept going. "It feels wrong," he said thickly. "My hands don't do what I want. I know. Mine don't either, not completely, but they do something, and that's better than nothing." They sat there for another hour, both of them drawing simple, imperfect shapes. Lily kept working with her left hand, deliberately making it a shared struggle rather than a teacher-student dynamic. When Marcus came home that evening and found them both hunched over the drafting table, Ethan didn't even look up. "He's drawing," Marcus mouthed silently to Lily, his eyes bright with tears. Lily shook her head slightly. Not yet. This wasn't the breakthrough Marcus was hoping for, just a small first step, but it was something. Over the next weeks, Lily and Ethan developed a routine. Every morning, they'd sit together at the drafting table. Some days Ethan would draw. Some days he'd just hold the pencil. Lily brought different tools for him to try: thick markers that required less precision, charcoal that forgave shaky hands, even modeling clay that he could shape without fine motor control. Slowly, Ethan's confidence grew. He started experimenting, figuring out what his hands could and couldn't do. He learned to stabilize his wrist against the table, to use his whole arm for broader strokes, to take breaks when his hands cramped up. His drawings were nothing like his old work, looser, more abstract, less controlled, but they were his. Then Marcus suggested Ethan start at a new private school, one with an art program. Lily thought it might be too soon, but Marcus was insistent. "He needs to be around other kids," he said. "He can't hide in his room forever." Ethan was terrified, but he went. And for the first week, things seemed okay. He didn't talk much about school, but he came home and drew with Lily, so she figured it was fine. Until the second Monday, when she arrived to find Ethan back in bed, facing the wall. "Ethan, what happened?" "Nothing. Leave me alone." "Kid, we both know that's not true. What's going on?" Silence. Then his voice muffled. "The art teacher saw my work." Lily's stomach sank. And he said maybe I should try a different elective. That art requires precision, and maybe I should accept my limitations. Ethan's shoulders shook. He didn't say I was bad. He said I was limited, like I'm broken. Rage flooded through Lily, hot and immediate. She took a deep breath, forcing it down. "What's his name?" "Mr. Whitmore. But it doesn't matter. He's right. My drawings are sloppy compared to what I used to do. I thought maybe I could work around it, but I can't. I'll never be good again. Ethan, look at me." Slowly, the boy turned over. His eyes were red, his face blotchy. "That teacher is an idiot," Lily said flatly. "A close-minded, unimaginative idiot who doesn't understand that art isn't about perfection. It's about expression. About seeing the world and putting that vision on paper or canvas or whatever medium speaks to you. Your hands might be different, but your vision isn't. The way you see things, the way you translate that into art, that's still there. But, no, listen to me. Some of the most famous artists in history had physical limitations. Renoir had arthritis so bad they had to tie brushes to his hands. Frida Kahlo painted from a bed after her accident. They adapted. They found new ways. And you know what? Those limitations shaped their art, made it unique. She sat down on the edge of his bed. "Mr. Whitmore looks at your work and sees what's missing. I look at your work and see what's there. Which perspective do you think is more valuable?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "I want to prove him wrong." "Then let's prove him wrong. But not by drawing like you used to, by drawing like you do now. By making something so honest and raw and real that anyone with eyes can see it's art." That afternoon they didn't draw. Instead, Lily took Ethan to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. They stood in front of paintings that were messy, abstract, unconventional. Works that broke rules and ignored traditional technique. "See this?" Lily said, pointing to a Jackson Pollock. "No fine motor control needed, just emotion and movement and courage." They moved to a Basquiat, all aggressive lines and deliberate rawness. This artist didn't care about perfection. He cared about saying something true. By the time they left, Ethan was quiet but thoughtful. That evening, he asked Lily to teach him about abstract expressionism, about artists who worked with different methods. They spent hours looking at images online, discussing technique and meaning. 2 days later, Ethan brought a painting to school. It was abstract, bold, full of emotion, nothing like his old detailed drawings, but powerful in its own right. He turned it in for his art class assignment. Mr. Whitmore gave him a C with a note. Shows effort, but lacks the technical skill expected at this level. When Marcus saw the grade and the note, he was furious. I'm going to call the school, he said, reaching for his phone. This is unacceptable. Don't, Ethan said quietly. Both adults turned to look at him. I don't care what Mr. Whitmore thinks. I care what I think. And I think. He looked at the painting, really looked at it. I think it's good. Different from before, but good. It's honest. Lily felt pride surge through her chest. This was the breakthrough Marcus had been hoping for, though not in the way he'd expected. Not Ethan drawing again, but Ethan believing in himself, despite what others said. But Mr. Whitmore wasn't done. The following week, he pulled Ethan aside after class. I need to speak with your father, he said. I'm concerned that someone may be doing your homework for you. This painting is quite sophisticated for someone with your limitations. The accusation hit Ethan like a physical blow. When he told Lily that evening, he was shaking with anger and hurt. He thinks I'm cheating. He thinks I can't do anything real. This time, Lily was the one who wanted to call the school, but Marcus had a different idea. We'll invite Mr. Whitmore here, he said. Let him watch Ethan create something from start to finish. Prove him wrong directly. Mr. Whitmore arrived on Saturday morning, skepticism written all over his face. He was younger than Lily expected, maybe late 30s, with the kind of confidence that came from never being truly challenged. He barely glanced at Lily, clearly assuming she was just staff. Mr. Chen, he said, shaking Marcus's hand, I appreciate you taking my concerns seriously. I simply want to ensure academic integrity. Of course, Marcus said smoothly, his businessman facade in place. Ethan, why don't you show Mr. Whitmore your workspace? They all moved to Ethan's room. The boy sat at his drafting table, hands already trembling with nerves. Lily wanted to say something encouraging, but Mr. Whitmore spoke first. I'll give you a prompt, he said. Draw anything you like, but incorporate the theme of transformation. You have 1 hour. Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. He selected his materials carefully, charcoal, because it was forgiving. Heavy paper that could handle aggressive marks. His left hand, which had become stronger over the months. For a moment, he just sat there, staring at the blank page. Lily could see the panic starting to set in, the way his breathing quickened. She caught his eye and mouthed, honest. Ethan took a deep breath. Then he began. He didn't try to draw what he used to draw. Instead, he let his hands move the way they wanted to move now, creating broad, sweeping strokes. He drew his hands scarred, imperfect, different, transforming into wings. Not realistic wings, but abstract representations, full of movement and emotion. The piece was messy and raw, with charcoal smudged across the paper in ways that would have horrified his pre-accident perfectionist self. But it was beautiful, heartbreaking and powerful, and completely honest. When he finished, his hands were covered in charcoal, and there were tears on his face. That's what transformation feels like, he said to Mr. Whitmore. Painful and messy and scary, but necessary. Mr. Whitmore stared at the drawing for a long moment. His expression shifted from skepticism to confusion to something that might have been understanding. He cleared his throat. This isn't what I expected. No, Marcus said, his voice hard. I imagine it isn't. You expected my son to fail, to prove your assumptions right. Instead, he showed you that your assumptions were wrong. Mr. Chen, I wasn't trying to— Yes, you were. Lily spoke up for the first time, unable to stay quiet anymore. You looked at Ethan's hands and decided he was limited. You saw disability instead of different ability. You're supposed to be an art teacher, but you're so focused on traditional technique that you can't recognize real art when it's right in front of you. Mr. Whitmore's face reddened. And you are? Someone who actually understands what it means to create art despite limitations. Lily held up her scarred hand. I was supposed to go to RISD. Instead, I clean gallery floors and draw with my non-dominant hand because my right hand doesn't work right anymore. I know exactly what Ethan's going through, which is more than you can say. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mr. Whitmore looked back at Ethan's drawing, really looked at it this time. You're right, he said quietly. I made assumptions. This is powerful work. Raw but powerful. He met Ethan's eyes. I apologize. I should have seen the potential instead of focusing on what you couldn't do. It wasn't enough, not really. The damage was done, the seed of doubt planted. But it was something. After Mr. Whitmore left, Marcus turned to Ethan. His son was still sitting at the drafting table, staring at his transformation piece. I'm proud of you, Marcus said softly. Not just for what you created, but for standing up for yourself. I had help. Ethan looked at Lily. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Marcus nodded slowly. Lily, you got my son to draw again. That was the deal. He pulled out a folder, thick with papers. Full scholarship to any art school of your choice. 4 years, tuition, room, board, everything. I've already set up the fund. Lily felt like she couldn't breathe. This was it, her dream, handed to her. She could go to RISD after all, or Pratt, or CalArts, or anywhere she wanted. 4 years to focus solely on her art, to develop her new style, to become the artist she was meant to be. She looked at Ethan, at the boy who'd become her friend over these months, at the drawing that represented his transformation, at Marcus, who'd trusted her with his most precious thing. I appreciate this more than you can know, she said carefully, but I need to add a condition. Marcus frowned. What condition? That Ethan gets lessons too. Real lessons from teachers who understand that art isn't about perfection, who can help him develop his new style, and that I can keep working with him even while I'm in school, maybe over video calls or during breaks. She met Marcus's eyes. He's just starting to find his voice. He needs support, not just from me, but from a whole community. Done, Marcus said immediately. Anything you need. Over the next weeks, they made plans. Lily applied to schools, her portfolio full of work that showed her journey from skilled traditional artist to someone who created with courage despite limitations. Ethan started working with a new art teacher, someone who specialized in adaptive techniques. And on a Thursday evening in June, Lily stood in a small gallery space that Marcus had rented for the night. The walls were filled with Ethan's new work, abstract, emotional, utterly unlike his old drawings, but powerful in their honesty. And in the corner, several of Lily's pieces, showing her own transformation. The opening was small, just friends and family. But among the guests were several art professors from local schools, people Marcus had quietly invited. They moved from piece to piece, discussing technique and emotion. One professor stopped in front of Ethan's transformation, drawing the one with hands becoming wings. Who did this? She asked. I did, Ethan said, straightening his shoulders. It's about adapting, learning to fly even when you think you can't. The professor smiled. It's brilliant, raw and honest, and exactly the kind of work we look for. How old are you? 10. 10. She shook her head in amazement. Keep working, young man. You have a real gift. After she moved on, Ethan turned to Lily, his face glowing. She liked it. She really liked it. I told you, Lily said softly. Art isn't about your hands. It's about your vision. And your vision is extraordinary. Marcus watched from across the room, tears in his eyes. Grace, the housekeeper, stood beside him. You saved that boy, she murmured. No, Marcus said. Lily did. But Lily, overhearing, shook her head. She looked at Ethan, at the boy who'd found the courage to transform his pain into beauty. We saved each other, she said, because that was the truth. Ethan needed someone who understood his struggle, who could guide him through the darkness of believing he'd lost everything. But Lily needed Ethan too, needed to see that her own transformation wasn't just personal, that she could take her pain and use it to help others find their way. In September, Lily started at the Rhode Island School of Design, her dream school. She called Ethan twice a week, and they'd video chat while they both drew. She sent him pictures of her classes, the other students, the incredible facilities. And he sent her his new work, pieces that grew bolder and more confident with each passing month. Marcus kept his promise about Ethan's lessons. The boy worked with several different teachers, each one helping him explore different techniques. But more than that, he found a community, other young artists, who saw past limitations to possibilities. 2 years later, when Lily graduated with honors, Marcus and Ethan flew to Providence for the ceremony. Ethan was 12 now, taller, his drawings featured in a youth art exhibition at a San Francisco gallery. His hands still bore scars, still didn't work the way they used to, but they created beauty nonetheless. After the ceremony, as they walked through the RISD campus, Ethan said, "Thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me," Lily said. "You did the hard part. I just showed you it was possible. You showed me more than that. You showed me that losing something doesn't mean losing everything. That transformation can be painful but necessary." He held up his scarred hands. "These aren't the hands I wanted, but they're the hands I have, and they're enough." Marcus, listening, felt his throat tighten. He thought back to that desperate morning when he'd made an impossible offer to a girl he didn't know. "Get my son to draw again, and I'll change your life." He'd thought he was offering her a transaction, a deal. He hadn't understood that she'd change all their lives, not through magic or miracles, but through simple, stubborn compassion. Through showing up every day and believing in possibility when everyone else saw limitations. That evening, over dinner at a small restaurant in Providence, Marcus raised his glass. "To Lily," he said, "who taught us all that wings can grow from broken things." Lily smiled, her scarred hand wrapped around her own glass. "To Ethan," she countered, "who had the courage to believe it." And Ethan, 12 years old and no longer afraid of his own hands, raised his glass too. "To transformation," he said simply. They drank to that, to pain that becomes strength, to endings that are really beginnings, to the unexpected people who change everything, to hands that create despite their scars, to hearts that heal by helping others, to the simple truth that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to help someone else find themselves first. Outside the restaurant window, the Providence evening wrapped around them, full of promise and possibility. Somewhere in California, a drafting table waited for Ethan's next piece. Somewhere in this city, a studio space held Lily's current work in progress. And in both places, art was happening, imperfect, honest, transformative art, created by hands that refused to quit, despite every reason to give up. Because that's what courage looks like. Not the absence of fear or pain, but the decision to create anyway, to believe anyway, to keep drawing, even when every line is a struggle, to see limitation and choose to see possibility instead. And in the end, that's exactly what they did.